Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to Mums at Work. My name is Rawa.
My name is Sumayya.
And today we'll be discussing me time and how we incorporate that into our busy lives. What do you do, Sumayya?
Me time? Oh, that's a difficult one, Rawa.
Yeah. It is for me, to be honest. I find it really hard to try and incorporate that into my everyday life.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. It's a tricky one to think about because you always think that you have to give your time to your kids and family and everyone first before you can have me time. And sometimes the me time doesn't come ever. But yeah, what I do for me time, because I'm working 2 jobs, but on the Friday I don't have to go to work. So I try and dedicate an hour of that morning so that I can just enjoy the breakfast. You know, once I drop the kids off to school,
So you've made it a routine for yourself.
Yeah.
That one day a week or that 1 hour of that.
1 hour of the week before I start my baking.
And has it become your routine?
It has. I mean, I'm not able to do it every single Friday, but I do try and fit in some of that morning for me, and it's something I actually look forward to for the whole week.
Yeah.
It's something that I know that once the kids are in school, I have that time where I can spend at least an hour just to enjoy my breakfast and, you know, just to have a bit of quiet time while you know, otherwise the day is so busy, there's always something happening. It's just nice.
No, I agree with you.
Like, look out the window because we have a lot of like wildlife that comes into our garden.
You love your nature.
Yeah, it's just nice to just watch that.
I agree with you. I think it's very important to have it as part of your routine, because I think if you don't have your you time, you will have a breakdown eventually. It happened to me not that long ago. I think I just, you know, we're a bit like robots, us mums, and we keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually we need to recharge ourselves or we'll just crash. And one way of recharging ourselves, I think, is having that me time. So I think even for me, one time what I did is your idea of having breakfast is I took off 2 days of work, and the only time I always leave my annual leave for my kids, you know, when they have holidays, that's priority. And I felt a bit of guilt taking off 2 days of work when I could dedicate it for their holidays. But then at the same time, I needed it. I needed to switch off from the world and everything and just reconnect with myself. So I just went to a shopping centre one day and just sat down and had breakfast by myself and just watched the world go by. And it did make me a lot calmer. It did bring me back to earth. It did make me think I need to stop thinking about the 100 things that are going on in my head. And it did recharge me, to be honest, and it made me realize how important it is to just set aside some time just for myself without anybody in my immediate area around me. And now, to be honest, one way I incorporate me time is I do have to diarize it. I do put it as something on my to-do list or something within my work calendar. I do say, today I'm doing this, today I'm booking this, or next week I've got this on, you know, because I think without it, we will eventually reach that point, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, however much your body can take, we will reach that point where we crash without it.
Yeah. I like the idea that you said that you diarize everything. And there's something that I don't put it in my diary, but there's a group that I attend on, which is dedicated to mindfulness. So we meet every 2 to 3 weeks, and it's something that's there, like the date is set, the time is set. So I make sure I tell my husband and my children that I will be attending this class. And pre-COVID, it was a physical class. I would be going there in the evenings, and I would tell my husband that this is happening. So, you know, he would maybe try and come home a little bit earlier from work, and because he knows that this is something that's important to me. And I wouldn't be leaving the house at whatever time in the evening, 8 o'clock, if it wasn't important for me to go. And I just like you said, you feel recharged. I mean, it is a group where we meet with other girls as well, but I still feel like I'm doing this for myself.
It's for you.
Yeah, it's for me. And absolutely, and I feel so recharged at the end of it. And, you know, I'm full of energy, and I go home and I tell my husband what I've learned and all the tactics that we've picked up, and it's just such a lovely experience to have, and you have a chat and a giggle at the end of the session, and it's just so wonderful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I have something similar pre-COVID. I had an exercise class that I used to go to once a week, and it became my routine. My husband, my kids know at this time, at this day, mum's out of the house, she's going to her exercise class. But what I try to do, Sumayya, as well, is when I've got that time to myself, I will try and extend me time, if you know what I mean. So if after the class I'm dropping a friend home or I'm with a friend, I'll say, do you want to go somewhere, have a coffee? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Because I just feel like, you know, I'm out already. I don't need to feel guilty about leaving them because I'm out already. So let me just extend that. And it's really important when you have that me time as well to not feel guilty, because we spoke in a previous show about having that mum guilt where we leave our husband, we leave our kids, we leave everything behind. But I think, you know, having that me time, extending that me time and not having no regrets about doing that and not feeling guilty about doing that really adds kind of that extra nice touch to our me time, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely agree when you used to talk about like mum guilt. And I think it's very important for us mums to realize that we do so much for everyone in our household. You know, I make sure that my children get to see their friends during the holidays. My husband gets to see his friends or his family and all the rest of it. I do my duties of going to see my mom and my sister and all of that. And yes, of course, that is definitely important. But like you said, you have to be able to take time out for yourself and not feel guilty about it, because you know, this is just as important as looking after someone else. And one of the things that I've picked up from my mindfulness class is that, you know, we all have like this cup of well-being, and unless ours is there, unless we are recharging our cup as well, we can't then recharge the other people in our immediate family's cups. We can't help them to feel good about themselves, and you know, I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just sometimes it's finding the time, isn't it, though? I recently bought a book that I wanted to read, haven't started reading it yet. Bought an exercise bike during lockdown, haven't ridden it that much. But I think one thing that, especially during lockdown, that's helped and we've been able to maintain throughout is just taking a walk by yourself. You know, just go out of the house, put a podcast on, or just, you know, just watch nature. You love your nature, don't you? Just take a walk. And for me, that's really helped me to kind of recharge when I don't have time, because just a 5-10 minute walk to smell the fresh air, come back in. I do feel that's still part of me time and recharging myself.
Yeah, that's very important. I think connecting with nature in your me time is something that I think we should all try and do. And I've been trying, like you said, you take a few minutes out for yourself. And I think when things are really you're feeling very overwhelmed with all the responsibilities that we have as a mother, as a working mom, you know, and that 5-10 minutes, and we all know how important nature is, you know, seeing greenery around us, feeling it under our feet, and it does allow you to reconnect with the earth. And all that energy that you get from the earth is so important for our bodies to function well.
Yes, definitely.
And it's a very good point that you said about recharging yourself. Just even 10 minutes in the fresh air does so much, does like wonders for you.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing, Sumayya, I find is quite useful is incorporating me time within your chores. So I'll give you an example. Something that really annoys me is folding clothes, or like really annoys me loading the dishwasher. I can't stand these chores. But something I do to make that chore a bit easier is I watch a series that I've been really into, or listen to a podcast, or just something that I would usually do in my me time. I actually do it whilst I'm doing that chore, if that makes sense. So I find that actually, as busy as our lives are, we can somehow incorporate me time when we're doing the everyday mundane things. And you'll find that actually when you're doing that, when you're watching a series or you're listening to something, it makes the job that you're doing not as much. You don't hate it as much as you did before. Does that make sense?
I understand that. I agree with you, actually. I do this sometimes as well. And then I put it on, and sometimes my children catch me watching like my dramas and stuff like that I watch, and I just think that, well, you know, mommy needs this as well, and I can't always fit it in when I want to. And this is something that, like you said, it makes that chore something pleasurable, like, because you could watch, you're doing, or you're watching, you're listening to something that you enjoy, and so it takes you off the feeling, oh, this is such a boring task to do, but I know I have to do it. So definitely, that's a good.
And it definitely engages your kind of emotions in a different way, because when you're doing something you hate, you start getting angry, you start getting agitated and frustrated. Whereas actually, when you're doing something when you're doing something you enjoy whilst you're doing something you don't enjoy, you'll find that your negatives tend to swerve onto the positive side.
That's a very good way of thinking about it, actually.
Definitely. And obviously, self-care is really important during me time. You know, that you have to have some sort of self-care routine. What do you do to take care of yourself like that?
I just make sure that I take time out and just like make sure that like the way I said spend time on looking after my kids physically, I also try and take that time out to myself, like you said, like, you know, going for a walk, that self-care, and like things like, especially at the end of the day when the kids have gone to sleep, I make sure that I have at least half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever, just time to myself, or I can have a cup of tea and just
A cup of tea.
Yeah,
Yes. It's you time.
Yeah, the simplest things, just a cup of tea. But I think this is something that even my husband knows now, you know, and he often just makes it for me, which is lovely. And you know, and I just think this is something that I try and do every evening, is just have that little bit of time. And yeah, it's part of my self-care. I think that definitely needs to happen.
Yeah, no, that's great.
How do you incorporate self-care into your routine?
I think for me, self-care starts with kind of taking care of my mental health and my mental well-being. And, you know, and then kind of move on to that kind of my physical well-being as well. So making sure I get those walks in, trying to exercise, eating well. Obviously, there'll be some weeks I do none of that. But then when I can tell when I've done none of that. And that's when I think, okay, it's time to think about me again, you know? So I think the signs, you'll always get the signs where your body's kind of crying out for self-love, if you like, telling you, take care of me. In both a mental sense and a physical sense as well. But yeah, like even, like I just said, food's really, really important. You know, I have to make sure I always drink lots of water. That's something that I know is self-care for me, because if I don't, I do feel dehydrated. I do feel like my body's struggling. I think it's just knowing your body will tell you, will give you the signs of what it needs. And, you know, if it's physical, you'll know. If it's mental, you'll know, you know, and whatever it is, you need to recharge, whatever it is. So part of me time, Sumayya, is also just switching off and just learning to leave your stresses and stuff behind. So let's see what Isra has to say about that.
So while people are working, and even those who enjoy what they do and they enjoy going to work, we do find so many people having that stress of work and even taking time off work because of the stress that they might face. And a lot of it is because the stress that they feel at work gets transported into the house. And what it does, it really reduces your time for recharging, for recovering from work. And you know, that has actually a huge impact on yourself on a personal level, and also on your work, your performance at work, but also your family life as well. So what it does, it actually has an impact on your sleep. It creates sleep disturbances. It increases anxiety potentially, and having even panic attacks that we see with people, or even more severe medical conditions. And of course, the impact on family is quite huge, because it affects relationships, it affects your interaction with your children, because this stress creates such a big charge of emotion. And when people come home and they've not dealt with that and they've not left that aside, they project that onto the people around them, especially the people that they are comfortable with, that they love. You do generally feel more comfortable to share your emotions with them. So I think, especially with modern society, I think having smartphones or even smartwatches, sometimes people keep the notifications of emails or messages on, and that really, you know, doesn't help with switching off. So I think that kind of leads me to one of the steps of how to actually, you know, deal with switching off from the stress of work. And I always think that for you to do that, it's about really building yourself up and making changes on 3 grounds, really holistic method, on a physical level, on a mental level, and a spiritual level. So on a physical level, it could be as simple as switching off your notifications. So saying that I won't look at my phone, or I won't check my messages, turning the notifications off past a specific time. And especially I think with smartphones, it's really making sure there is no messages or emails that come to your watch as well. And also I think if for people who work from home, which we are increasingly seeing people working from home, even outside even after the pandemic, it's really having a specific place, a specific time that you work in, and even specific clothing that you choose to wear when you are working, because you do build up an association between that space, that time, and the clothes or the smell with the work. So if it is causing stress, then maybe changing your environment, changing your clothes will really help you to switch off from that. On a more mental level, I would say it's working on yourself, and that's more inner, deeper work, and you can get support and help through this journey by working on how to compartmentalize different areas of your life mentally. And this is such a big technique, because I've seen so many people, when they stress at work or when they're hurt by their friends, they bring that home and then they've not dealt with it. And mental compartmentalization is actually saying that this is a work stress, I recognize it, I acknowledge it, and I choose to act differently now that I am home. So recognizing that thought, recognizing that emotion, and leaving that aside, literally almost creating a file cabinet in your mind and saying that can go there and I can think about that there. And when you are home, you bring on a different persona, even if it might seem like you're acting for a period of time, but it changes how you feel, and that's what you want to create. The other thing I would say is when you are doing that, if you do find that it's difficult at the start to compartmentalize these things, is maybe set yourself a stress time or a worry time, even if it's at home. So it could be like, okay, I'll set myself an 8 p.m. stress time. So any thought that you might have or stress that you might have relating to work once you are home, you can write it down and set a specific time, half an hour, to think about everything that you feel like you need to stress about or think about. And that really avoids you spending the whole time that you're at home stressing, and rather keeping it for a specific time and place for you to stress and worry about whatever is going on. On a more spiritual level, I think the techniques of mindful breathing, meditation, prayers, du'as, all of those really help you to wind down, to get you in a state of presence and peace and surrender, where the stress of the outcome of anything really reduces. So I really encourage people within their time routine, whether it's a morning routine or evening routine, to really incorporate some spiritual techniques that help you become more present and peaceful, and really help you to surrender whatever is happening.
So, Rawa, do you find it easy to switch off from work?
A lot more so now, yes, because once I finish work at 5 or 5:30 or sometimes 6 o'clock, it doesn't matter what time it is, I don't have time to think about it. I think that's the honest answer. You just suddenly dive into everything you have to do for the kids, for yourself, for your house, whatever it is, that there's no time to think about work. Yeah. And to be honest, that's the right thing. Leave work at work. That's the rule that I like to have in my life, because if I'm thinking about work whilst I'm doing everything else, it's overwhelming. It's burdensome. So definitely it's good to switch off. And I think I'm quite good at doing that. But I know it's harder for some people, definitely. But now let's talk about how, when we're at work, where do we have the time? So we try and incorporate time for ourselves and have our me time, but how do you find the time to connect with God, to connect with Allah? Because ultimately, I think that's where people struggle. That's where people find it the hardest. When you're a working mom and you're working, you're coming back home to do X, Y, Z. How do you fit in the spiritual side of life and connecting with God?
I think this is a really, really interesting topic, and something that at times I found it struggle to fit in. Like, you feel like when there's like big days, important days in the Islamic calendar, that you get like messages of there's all these different du'a that you should read on certain days and certain times, and I feel like, and I think about it, and I think I physically do not have the time to read all of that. But then I think there are times in the day where I can fit in certain things. Maybe like how you said previously, that you do it within your chores. So I've noticed what I've been doing is while I'm baking, I put a lot of dua in the background, you know, on certain days, like if it's a Thursday, dua qomel, if it's a Friday, I do a notba, and you know, all these different duas, and I really feel the whole room, I feel it just feels so much more calm. There's so much barakat in the food that I'm making, and it's just wonderful that having that in the background, and I feel that my work is getting done. There's so much barakat in the work that I'm doing that it's actually getting completed, you know, and I just feel like that's one way I connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how do you connect with Allah?
Yeah, so that's interesting, the dua element that you just mentioned, because I think that's where I struggle the most, because we do our wajibat, but then it's harder to do the stuff on top, isn't it? So I think for me personally, what I did a while ago is I set myself a routine. We spoke about having me time as part of your routine, and I ensured I had a routine. So I have this special dua that I do once a month, and I make sure I do it every first Friday of the month so I don't forget. And I've been doing it for the past few years now, and the day that if I ever forget to do it, I don't feel right. But as soon as I remember, I was supposed to have done it yesterday, then I didn't do it, so I'll just do it the day I remember. But you do, once it becomes a part of your life, you don't feel right not doing it. It just becomes, you need it. It becomes like your food for your soul, you can't live without it. Yes. So I think definitely it's important to incorporate some sort of dua within your life, make it a routine. But I think at work, it's really important that your employer is understanding to your religious needs. So I'm very lucky in my work. We have a prayer room, and it's usually quite quiet. So sometimes, obviously, I'll go there just before I have my lunch to pray. But I also sometimes just go there for the peace of it. When you go to a spiritual room, when it's dedicated just for something between, for you to have that connection with God. Sometimes I'll just go and I'll just sit there. And the thing about God is you can just speak to him. You don't have to wait till Salah time to do that. You can speak to him all the time. So I think people can't have excuses for not speaking to God. You can't say I'm too busy, because you can speak to him anytime. So that's important that we can remember that and just incorporate that into our everyday life, no matter what it is, And even with our chores, and even with our kids, and even with our work, you just ask God to help you. Just say, God, I don't know how I've got the energy for this. Just please help me. Please help me. So people forget you're not just talking to God throughout when you're doing dua. You're not just talking to him when you're praying. You can talk to him whenever you want. He's there. He's always there. He'll listen. He's there to help. So these things are really important. Obviously, sometimes at work, because I work in an office environment, and sometimes we do not have lunch. That's how busy work gets. So if I don't have my lunch, I do forget to just take that time out and go to the prayer room and connect. And I think that's where I struggle, and that's where a lot of people struggle. Obviously, in summertime it's a lot easier because the prayer time is later.
Of course, yes.
But winter is harder. And I think that's where God is testing us the most, I guess, because we have to make sure that we take that 5-minute break and just say, right, I need to go and pray now. But it's also making sure that people don't feel afraid to say it out loud in front of people, to say, I need to go and pray now. I don't want to have lunch, I don't want to have a drink, I need to go and pray and just take that time out. I've become a lot more better at doing that, where people know that I need to go and do that. And I think that makes it easier when people know where I'm going and what I need to do. And sometimes I feel like actually some people have said to me that they envy me because I have this routine that I have to do every single day, and I do it and I don't complain about it. And they see me come back refreshed. They do see me come back chirpier, a better person. And they just wonder what the secret is. And I say to them, it's just God, So that's definitely important, having that connection with God in the workplace as well.
I like when you say about when your colleagues speak to you, and sometimes I feel like you do, when you speak to them, they become so fascinated about Islam and the duties that we have to perform. For example, in the Ramadan that just went, it was the first Ramadan that I was fasting in this new job that I've had. And a lot of the colleagues were like, wow, I mean, how do you fast such long hours? Don't you get thirsty and everything? And I feel like, and I say to them that, look, this is a test just like any other test that you may have in your life. And, it's all about mindset. And I say to them, this is just all about, if you say to yourself that, yes, you can do it, then you will end up doing it. And I feel like while I'm performing my duty as a wajibat, and when I speak to them, I feel myself becoming closer to Allah, because I have to then take that step forward and have a discussion with them about what it is. And we know why we're fasting and everything, but I think when you vocalize it gives it that much more importance, and I'll say, yes, this is my religion and this is what we believe and this is why we do it. It's not just abstaining from food and drink, there are so many benefits behind it. And I feel like when I talk about it, I myself feel feel myself getting closer to Allah and the reasons why we do all of this.
Because you're saying it out loud.
Exactly, I'm saying it out loud, and you're saying it to people that may not have the knowledge, or have never come across someone that might be fasting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And within our own home circles and our family circles, and I think we talk about it, and everybody knows the reasons behind it.
It's actually nicer to educate people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you feel proud.
Yeah, exactly. And they by I say mid to end Ramadan, I think most of the staff knew that me and a couple of other staff members will be fasting, so they wouldn't even ask us, oh, well, how come you've not come to the staff room, or or they wouldn't offer us food. And they knew that. They were so respectful, I think. And that's because I took that step to just speak to them just briefly about what it is. And I think that's very important. And one other thing, like you said, in your office you have that prayer room. So at my present job, I'm very lucky that it's very close to my house and I can be home within 5 minutes. But I used to work here somewhere else which was quite far away from me, and it was in a Catholic school I used to work, and because they have a religious background, they understood that everyone from a different religious background have different needs and requirements, and they actually set up a prayer room for me, and I thought it was so wonderful. I was the only Muslim at the time there, and they took that time to set up something for me because they knew there's something I needed. Especially during the winter months, like you said, it's a test of our faith, isn't it? Yeah. Of going outside of your comfort zone and asking for something that no one else probably needs, a place to pray, and it's just and they appreciate it so much. And she made it so lovely for me, and she even came and showed me. She goes, "This is your place. No one else will be coming in here." And and sometimes you find it so awkward to go and ask for something, but Allah makes it so much more easier when you've just taken that one step forward.
Definitely.
And I just think that's and that's another way of getting closer to Him, because that you're going there, like you said, you go into your prayer room and you just spend a short period of time in there, and you become so much more fresh and ready to face the rest of your day. Exactly. You feel so much content, and and they did used to ask me, "Oh, what are you doing in that room?" and things like that, But you just kind of, again, you just vocalize it and you just speak to them about what it is, and
Yeah, no, definitely. I think another thing, Sumayya, is another way of connecting, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, wherever you are, is your favorite thing to do, which is be outdoors in the nature. I find that when, especially if you're alone and you're just walking, through the park or just walking outside and you're looking at everything and you're just walking and living in that moment, you do kind of tend to see God's creations and what beauty there is around you, and things that we take for granted every day that we wouldn't normally see. And I think that is another chance as well to, especially if you're alone, to just reconnect with God. So that's something I like to do when I'm at work, is if I'm just feeling particularly stressed or I don't want to have a go at someone, just take a 5-minute walk outside. And just looking up at the sky, and you just think, wow, that's all. Sometimes I just say, wow, because there are no words sometimes, to think about God's creations and why things are created this way. And we don't have the time sometimes to observe everything. So definitely always try and incorporate the great outdoors, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very important as well. And definitely you do feel closer to your Lord when you see so much like beauty around you, and sometimes you miss it. What that saying is, stop and was it stop and smell the flowers, something like that. And I don't, as busy moms, as we don't get time for all of that, but that 5 minutes, like you said, is sometimes all you need to bring yourself back, and feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one thing that I've been doing, I'd say since this Ramadan, was it's such a simple thing, and it's probably something that a lot of people already do, is what I do is I keep the time of Maghrib on my phone, and the adhan.
Great idea.
And the adhan plays, and I've kept it really loud specifically so that we all hear it at that time in the house. And my children now know that when adhan is being played, whatever you're doing, or if you're talking, or if you're playing with something, whatever, you'll just you'll stop, or you won't talk through it at all. Like it will be silence. You may carry on reading your book or whatever you're doing, but you won't be talking. You won't be making any noises or anything like that. That is the time for salah. And then I feel like that while we're all listening to that, I'm that's a reminder that it's now namaz time to go and pray.
Yeah.
And not just that, but your children. And like my son the other day was saying that, Mama, you don't need to tell me when I need to go and pray because I know I can hear it on your phone when the adhan goes. So now he knows, especially since the holidays have started, he knows as soon as he hears the adhan, he will go and do wuzu and start his salah. And so I feel like through the simple thing of technology, we can bring ourselves and our children closer to Allah. And that's definitely something that helps you to become
more connected.
Exactly, more connected to your Lord.
And inshallah they stay that way.
Inshallah.
And that brings us to the end of our show. Ma'as salama.
Allah Hafiz.